Perfect. Okay, I will call the meeting to order, and we'll start off with a roll call. McKee here, Schultz.
Here.
Behrenkamp.
Here.
Nichols.
Here.
And Counselor Bodema is maybe on his way. We'll find out. Not a big deal. And we'll just go right into the work session, which is Cook Lake Highlands PUD amendment discussion.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a couple slides if you want me to walk through them that highlight what's in your packet, or,
That'd be great.
okay. So this is a request to have a discussion at the work session about a potential PUD amendment to the Cook Lake Highlands PUD. That was approved in 2021, and final approval was granted last spring. The developer, as I'm sure you know, has been grading and did infrastructure work, including some of the street and utility work this summer. Now they've approached the city indicating that the market has changed and they'd like to make some changes to the plan. And Beth Husted and Steph Griffin are here to talk about it, And I think one of the big changes is the addition of the Ebert property on the west side. And then if you go to the next slide, I was just going to walk through so the changes, if you go, yeah, I can, either way. Let's stay here for a sec. The daycare facility is staying. They have been working on building permits. We could see them under construction this spring. That is not changed on the corner at the entrance to the project. The applicant would like to change the 19 villa homes that were always proposed in the northwest corner of the site to rental units. The United Properties, Applewood Point Co-op, United Properties would like to change that to a 145-unit apartment building. The footprint, height, everything stays the same. It's the internal walls that change that result in the additional units. The assisted living facility next to the daycare has walked, and the applicant is asking to do 12 single-family rental units on that parcel, and then add the 3-acre property to the west and add 19 single-family homes on that, again, rental. So the property to the west is guided and zoned mixed residential, the same as the underlying zoning on the Cook Lake PUD. That plan includes 1.8 acres of HOA-maintained open space along County Road 10. That's a new addition with the rental component. That's an important part of the rental single-family concept. Next slide shows the difference between their proposed plan on the left and the new, or the approved plan on the right. North of Brockton Lane, really nothing changes physically on the site. The changes are in what types of units there are. The big changes are in the southwest corner of the site. Next slide. So a couple of things I want to highlight, and again, Beth and Steph can talk more about this, but the density with the change is still within the allowed density range, a little lower. It's at about 8 units an acre, where 8 to 10 is required, so it doesn't require a comprehensive plan amendment. The lot standards requested for the rental homes are smaller than the homes that are on the cul-de-sac. Those are proposed with 32-foot wide lots with 5-foot side yard setbacks. The approval, as you can see, was 50-foot wide lots with that same 5-foot setback. So we've got the green that's shown on the map is the HOA maintained open space. I would note that the new property that's being added in has not had a wetland delineation done, and the Public Works Director believes there are wetlands on that site, so we would need to get a wetland delineation and determine whether that in fact is all upland. That access to those single-family homes would be via a private drive shown there. And so one of the things, if the council supports it, you may want to talk about parking. We wouldn't allow on-street parking on a private drive like we do on public streets, and so maybe some off-street parking for those private amenities would be appropriate. Next slide. The big question, though, for the council is, right now there's nothing in our ordinance that prohibits someone from renting a single-family home. You're working on a rental housing ordinance. And the draft ordinance does give an option for a special exemption for planned communities like this. I would argue that planned communities are different than a developer coming in and buying houses in a college town, for example, or something like that. They're planned with maintenance. They have an owner that maintains those properties. This plan includes the developer that's doing the Edgewater project in Maple Grove. We were, staff, Natalie and I, were going to go visit that yesterday, and the snowstorm canceled that. So I personally haven't been over there, but Natalie has reached out to the planner in Maple Grove, and her understanding was that there weren't concerns yet. It's new, but with that development from staff or the council yet.
Which one was that?
That's the one directly east of this property. It's Edgewater
Edgewater.
on Cook Lake.
The big building there?
Right.
No, it's behind that.
It's not, the
Oh, the
single-family
homes.
homes, there's single-family
All right.
homes that are rentals,
Got it.
sorry, excuse me. So, that's really the big, I think, discussion tonight first, is the concept of the rental, single-family neighborhood, and the concept of the apartment building. The United Properties has indicated that they are not doing the co-op, but the apartment is something that they would do, as I understand it. And again, I let Beth and Steph talk a little more about that. So the change from the co-op to the apartment, the change from assisted living to single-family, and the change from for sale to rental single-family. And so the applicant's here tonight to get feedback from the council on a number of things. But as I said, I think the rental issue is the biggest issue, and the other things don't matter if the answer to that is no. So, Steph and Beth certainly have more information. I don't know if anyone else is going to be here tonight, but they are available for conversation as well. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Great, thank you. Any questions for Kendra? Do we want to hear from the applicant?
The original zoning before this was converted to PUD, would it allow apartments?
Let me just double check. I believe that it did, but I need to confirm.
I'm not sure about the zoning part specifically, but I know that was a component that was discussed at
Yes.
previous sketch plans and.
Apartments are permitted
support
use in the RMF2 zoning district, which was the underlying zoning.
Anything else for Kendra?
Wait to hear after we hear from the applicant.
Yeah, Beth?
Good evening, members of the council, Mr. Mayor, and staff. I'm Beth Husted with Trek Development, and this is Steph Griffin, who is newly with Trek, back again after 7 years of being gone. So we believe that the reason we're here tonight, in part, is that market conditions have changed a little bit. Not a little bit, but I would say the economic conditions are a part of why we're here tonight. I think that United Properties Applewood will be on later this evening with us on another project, and I've asked them to be available to answer questions about maybe why the Applewood is not going forward and why they chose not to proceed with the Applewood. Kendra is right. We would like to have the ability for this to become, all the single family to become rental, but we would also like to be able to be for sale too. Right now, we are not under contract with anyone, and we feel that the product that we're proposing, the 50-footers and the 32-footers, are both products that Robert Thomas, which is the builder for that builds these products for sale, but they also are building these products as a for-rent product for clients like the Excelsior Group in Edgewater next door. So the product is that we're proposing is both a for-sale product on the market today and also in purpose-built rental communities in the nearby area. So I think, when the assisted or the memory care group came to us, it was in December, And they basically said that because of the market conditions, the interest rate, the cost of construction, that they weren't able to proceed according to the contract that they had signed with us. So at that time, we thought, you know, what do we do with this memory care? Because there wasn't another memory care. The first memory care that we were working with actually went in Maple Grove next to Hy-Vee. So we were kind of stuck and wondered, you know, what can be done here that makes sense, that is consistent with the comprehensive guide plan, consistent with the PUD, consistent with the zoning, and really, what is the market calling for right now? So we actually thought about single family for the memory care prior to even knowing about the possibility of the Ebert parcel. And then we met with staff and said, you know, we're trying to reimagine this, we're trying to think about what's the best uses for this, and how does staff feel about it, how do we think the council will feel about it in the community, and why are we thinking about these products? So that's when staff asked us to once again look into the Ebert parcel, and we did. We met with them, and so we're hopeful that that is something that we can add to this PUD as part of this amendment, and answer some questions around that property too, and how that was going to develop in the future. So we really feel that Steph has a much
Wait, can you
more
say that again?
Excuse me?
How does the Ebert property tie into this?
It's added to it.
On
So
the front page.
Yeah, I
you're
think you
done.
just.
Yeah,
bottom left.
Staff, so it's actually
Or
adjoined
It's right here.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so what Steph has been very involved in the Build for Rent project with the Excelsior Group. That's where she was working prior to coming to Trek. And she did the land development portion of that project. And so they reached out to us once we found out. Well, actually, they reached out to us to purchase some more lots, and the 19 single-family lots is where they started. And we have other interested parties in those 19 lots. And so we haven't yet come to an agreement with anyone on them, and thought it would probably be best to go through this process first and see where staff is at and where the council is at, and then proceed from there. So I think, and Steph, maybe you can speak better than I can about this, but that whether it is a single-family for sale community or a single-family for rent community, they will both have HOAs, homeowners associations, that will manage the common area and the maintenance of the project and the amenity space. And I think really it doesn't look any different when you drive through the community, if it is a for rent or a for sale community. So Steph, I think, you know, if you have anything to add, that would be helpful.
I don't have a lot more to add, but I'm hoping I can maybe answer any questions or have some background on that. And we obviously could introduce you to the rental team and the operation team. It's fully on-site, you know, full-time on-site management, maintenance, leasing within the community that this would be here as part of the Edgewater project. They do have on the Edgewater side a clubhouse, pool, leasing office that includes a workout facility and amenities for the neighborhood. That would be part of, if they added more lots in this project, they would have access to that, and then they'd add, I think what their vision was some sort of pickleball or green space, open space with connectivity to the two projects.
Right. And if it were for sale community, if the single-family units were built for sale, again, it would have a homeowners association, and again, that would take care of the open space. and the amenity space that they choose, whether it's a playground or pickleball courts or whatever.
I think one comment to make on the difference from the 50-foot to the 32-foot product is we were working through what works best with the way the site is laid out already, and how do you create something that fits within the current guide plan.
The mixed residential, so it is mixed residential, and so,
But yet is a single-family detached home. They're doing this in other markets across the city, several builders in this market. I think one benefit to this product is that it is a rear load product. So the streetscape on 74th or Brockton would be front doors. It would feel like people have connectivity to the neighborhood. There are not garage doors or driveways coming off 74th. That was a goal of how we redesigned this, the memory care and potentially the Ebert piece, because we felt that was beneficial to have something that was not having driveways coming off.
and staff guided us in that area too. So you don't have all the driveways coming off onto 74th or what is, it's so
Brockton.
confusing,
Brockton.
Brockton or 74th, because that's 74th coming off MI Homes. Yeah, so it's, but,
Who decided on Brockton?
I don't know, I wondered the same
well, I
thing.
think the intersection is Brockton.
The intersection is.
But so is the highway.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I know, we're on the same page. It's dumb.
We don't love that.
Brockton?
Well, just because it's.
It's because
just
there's
it-
Brockton.
Well, and then
Yeah, it's confusing.
74th.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we will need to decide what that really is.
Well, we did, the police chief and Mike have decided what that street name is. I maybe, the latest I have is Brockton there, so,
Okay.
but we'll double check that if
Sounds
this
good.
moves forward. But that, you guys know we had a lot of time on the street naming policy, and I'll defer to Matt on the name of the street.
Just gonna name it after another existing street?
Yeah,
Just to confuse
that's what's
everybody?
confusing to me, yeah.
Can we unwind that?
And
That is a
the Maple
really
Grove
bad
side is
idea.
73rd Ave.
Yes.
So the corporate
It's a-
side
yeah, that's
is
a nightmare.
74th, and then Brockton's
We can
in the
look at
middle, and they both connect.
As
Yeah.
that
We-
comes in.
we-
So
I would
let's just
think-
say placeholder road.
We should name it Highway 94. Pick a random road that's near it.
How
and
about
just
Nicollet
call it
Mall?
that.
How about Nicollet
Nicollet
Mall?
Mall, yes. The Metrodome.
Jesse will make the same comments about Corcoran streets as St. Paul streets. pretty soon.
I know.
I won't go beyond that.
Can
Yeah.
I
Sorry,
ask,
Matt.
what happened to the co-op? You guys had,
It's a
you guys
great
had,
question.
you guys had said that there was 60%
Yep.
purchase agreements for it. We had
I
to,
don't think it was purchase agreements. It was
You-
reservations.
whatever agreement,
Yeah,
reservations,
yeah, that's what
whatever.
the co-op said, yep.
you guys were so hell-bent on that, we had to give you open time, or we had to extend time related to excavation and all that without agreements signed and stuff. Why should we do all of this stuff? And how do we know this is what's gonna happen?
Okay, so the co-op probably.
And then my biggest thing is, who the hell is gonna talk to the neighbors? They are expecting, oh my God. If they come in here and they're livid like they were about not being involved, not being done, I don't even want any part of that stuff.
So the neighborhood did ultimately come back in support, because they reached out to me. And I know-
Support of what?
Of the project.
Of
because
this
we-
now?
No, of the project, because we changed it to single family.
No.
Adjacent to them.
Of this idea.
Well, this is.
This is adding 45 more dwellings in the apartments. It's adding how many more single-family homes to this neighborhood? We talked about traffic related to the memory care and how little traffic it would generate, how little traffic it would be coming out of the co-op apartments, and now we're opening it up to a free-for-all. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when you talk to the neighbors.
Yeah, I think that raises a question that I have about, would a change like this, which is adding in new property, changing the type of use.
That's a whole nother PUD
Changing some of the
review,
things, that doesn't have to go through
in
planning?
my mind.
And
Well, I think
Commission's like
when
normal.
Natalie and I reviewed it, when they first came in, Ebert was not involved, and that would not have involved going back to the planning commission, but I think with the addition of the Ebert parcel, which is not part of the PUD, it would need to go back.
Okay.
I think we need to look more closely at that, depending, it is an amendment to an existing PUD, and amendments generally don't.
Yeah,
I
but it's
think where
also
this is
changing
different is
almost
that it
everything.
wasn't in the original plat.
We can, can't we say that it has to go back? There's
I
no
think
legal.
so.
I
don't
think because
there's a
Ebert
legal-
wasn't in there, it has to go back.
But to your point, I think we could just say,
If you just, I mean.
unless there's a timeline issue that gets.
I don't think you can just throw in additional acreage that happens
Right.
to be near
I agree.
the-
I think this is a
Original.
great conversation, but we were directed that, we were told that it would qualify as a, that's the only reason that we added it.
Maybe it qualifies as a PUD, but it,
No, as amendment. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
That is really what we were directed to. I mean, I'm confused.
Well, when you were directed that, Beth, we didn't have Ebert, remember, as we
No,
sat in
no,
that room. And without Ebert being involved, that property, I should say, it would be a PUD amendment that would come to the council. Because again, at the end of the day, that is how we recently changed the code to not send PUD amendments back. So that would have come only to the council. I do think that if the council supports this with the addition of that, which I think is a better project, it would need to be preliminary platted, and that would need to go to the planning commission.
This is a better project than the original?
I think adding that piece of property that
Oh,
would
that
encourage
piece
them
to
to have
finish it
that
off
three
instead of
pieces.
having a lone wolf.
That's
sitting there.
what needs to go back to the planning commission, because that's not been platted. So you wrap it together and send it back.
Yeah, and I think that's a sidebar to the conversation. The conversation is really, do you support the changes that are here? And it's, to be honest with you, it's an uphill battle to figure out why I would support these changes when some of the original concepts that came through had apartment buildings in here, right? And there was,
Two, it did have two, yeah.
yeah, there wasn't support from council then for apartment buildings. And for me, I really can't support 32-foot lots, especially on a major road like that. That's, when you talk about the point of view people are gonna have of Corcoran, they're gonna see these homes on 32-foot lots stacked on top of each other, 10 feet apart. And I don't know if that's the view that we want people to have of Corcoran. We already get enough pushback on 50-foot lots with 10 feet in between. Now we're gonna show that we're stacking 32-foot lots. I mean, we might as well have row homes before we're done with the
well,
thing.
row homes, some row homes are attractive.
I know, but I don't want this turned into San Francisco.
I know. More attractive, maybe.
And I think that part of the thought process was that we were under the impression that council was not interested in attached products. You were struggling with some of the attached products that had been brought to you. So-
We don't,
Right,
I
and this
don't
is-
want
this
attached.
is
These
mixed
are,
residential,
you
so
might
we
as well
can do
attach 'em.
attached, Yeah,
I,
so we were just trying to, figure out the best use. I mean, if you think about this, and you think about the zoning, and that it's mixed residential, what would you all put on, it's mixed residential, and you have, we don't want a downzone, then we have to do a comp plan amendment. So if you're thinking about density, we're right at 8 units to an acre by doing, by changing the apartments from a co-op to an apartment. Same building, same architecture, same site plan, nothing changes on the site, nothing changes from the exterior and the look of it.
but more traffic.
And we'll do a traffic study to prove the traffic of 45 units.
145 more market
No,
rate
it's
apartment.
45 more.
45.
145.
Well,
145 total compared to 100 co-op 55 and older. Huge number difference in traffic, no matter what the traffic study is, in my mind.
I think the traffic study would,
The neighborhood is going to lynch us if we were to say yes to this or
Well,
anything. That's how I feel.
well,
I'm sorry.
and the intersection that we just have been involved in trying to get constructed and completed is ultimately, I believe, a signaled intersection right there, so.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
everyone's gonna be going
knew
on.
that, we knew it was gonna be a pain, we knew all of those things, I don't need to rehash those. I'm just saying, this is a huge difference in my mind from what all was there to this. Huge difference. Age differences, overall traffic going into a
Well, if it were a 55 plus apartment
memory
building, it
care
would be an
part,
age
a
difference.
memory care place.
Would it be a 55? Is that what you're
It could be.
proposing?
It very well could be, yeah.
Aren't there three
Could,
different
would,
options?
should.
Yeah, those are
Well,
very
we're just
different.
here- We're just
Yeah.
here having this
Well-
discussion so that we even get some sort of direction from you,
Yeah.
but that, I mean.
I'm glad you're here before,
Spend more money.
yeah, before, so this is actually a good idea, and I want to say, it's a good idea to come here with ideas before you go and spend a ton of money on figuring out. I will say that, I'm very much against the for sale to rental. And renting is a problem here in our state specifically, in the metro areas even more so, because they're trying to enact rental controls. You can't kick people out of rental properties. I had one until I burned it down. The state could have come and forced me to have renters in there, which they tried to do. And we don't get any of our cases prosecuted in Hennepin County. You can't make residents of a rental community be drug-free. You can't kick them out of a rental unit. You can't kick them out for almost any reason, including not paying the rent. And so these rental laws in the last 5 years have made rental communities a really bad idea for any community that wants them. And I was just reading a book, and they asked the question, have you ever washed a rental car? And I thought, well, never. I've never washed a rental car. And that's what ultimately happens, especially now that a city and no entity can control anything that goes on in a rental area, is, all you have to do is take a crime map, put it on top of where rental units are, anytime, anywhere across the metro area. You have more crime. We have less tools to fight crime. And I don't want them. I don't want them in our town. So I will adamantly advocate against anything that's for rent in our town.
So that's why we're here tonight, because
Yeah.
we have buyers that are interested in the single family for sale also. So this is why we're here having this conversation, and it's helpful, it's super helpful, so I really appreciate it. I'm not sure that I agree with you on all of the crime and all of that with these planned rental communities.
You're entitled to your own opinion, but not your own facts. So, all you can say what you want about
Yeah.
crime and rental, and that's fair.
I would say from a fact standpoint on the rental that is proposed here and would be proposed as a purpose-built. I don't know if you've toured any of the communities that are purpose-built for rent communities that are being run by very professional on-site management companies that have extensive experience in both single-family and multifamily buildings. But these, for example, the Edgewater project next door, the average rent is $4,000 a month. These are not, I understand what you're saying, but the purpose-built communities are, they're marketed as luxury high-end rental. There's people that are choosing to rent, not to own.
For now.
Right.
But that would, I guess, be this, what's the difference
They
on the for
degrade.
sale side?
That's what happens, is they
Just
degrade.
to
They're
say
good at
it's-
the start.
To say it simplest, I think if you would have came in with this plan to begin with, it would have never passed.
How
That's
does-
the straightest,
okay.
shortest answer I can give you.
Can you give us feedback on this plan if it were for sale on the single family?
For me, I won't support 32-foot lots.
Yeah, I won't even.
Okay. Detached, single family, 32-foot lots, you just won't support it. So we would probably have to account plan amendment and downzone this site if that isn't gonna be allowed.
So what would that entail?
Um,
I would like, probably Kendra.
So when you do a comp plan amendment, we need to be averaging 3 units an acre across the city. And our comp plan is right about at 3 units an acre. We might be close enough that we don't have to change anything else. What used to happen in the past was you would downzone, or not zone, reclassify one piece of property to a lower land use, you'd have to change another piece of property to a higher land use. So if you take, I forget how big this is, 30 acres of medium density and change it to low density, we would have to take 30 acres of low density elsewhere and change it to medium density to get to that 3. I haven't done the math. This isn't a huge number of units variation probably, but that's the process we would go through.
What about that whole property that's gonna come in way above 3 per?
Well, they're not at 3 per in the comp plan, they're the mixed use, which I forget if that
They're gonna come in
averages-
around 30, I think,
I think, yeah.
around 40 acres.
40 acres and how many units?
So.
They're having-
Like 7.
I think my short
40.
answer is, this isn't enough units that I think we'll probably have to do that. We probably could guide the property and not have to change other properties, simply because a lot of our neighborhoods have come in over 3 since we did the comp plan, which will average it out. If it was the whole thing changing, I think we're talking about a few units difference, so.
If this were to come back as a new PUD because of the addition of the property, would the new PUD requirements apply? Or is the site too small?
I would still call this a PUD amendment. I would just say because of the plat, it needs to go through. But that would be a question for the council. I mean, I think you certainly could provide direction to that effect. We haven't adopted those yet, but I think we have to also think about, we've got something approved that's got the infrastructure in it. A full redo is going to be challenging, given that we've got roads and infrastructure and deals with the Met Council and that. So starting from scratch, we've sort of got some parameters that we're dealing with. So I would still say it's a PUD amendment, but because it has a new piece of property, that requires a plat to go back to the planning commission. And I believe Natalie is on board
Yep.
as well.
Yeah, and just something that Natalie is noting virtually is if we do downsize or downzone, it likely the co-op might be impacted.
Or
Because,
It wouldn't be a co-op anymore.
The apartment.
or apartment.
We're not talking about zoning.
Okay.
We're talking about land use designation, so that's why I want to be careful. You can change the land use designation and still allow the uses approved in the PUD.
I want to take away my, my swipe at the rental. To your point, not all of them are terrible. I feel bad about broad brushing like that. There are some rental communities that are nice and well-maintained. They don't have a good reputation.
Right.
And it's hard to maintain them over time to be attractive places.
They aren't self-regenerating in the same way, potentially.
It's, yeah.
I think I understand that point. I think there's another side of the coin that they are on-site maintenance. I mean, if you have a light bulb go out and someone comes and changes your light bulb, there's an argument to be made that a purpose-built, build-for-rent community is more consistently maintained on the exterior than a purpose-built for sale community. I mean, they're very nice. We believe the for rent and for sale are both very important pieces to our housing inventory. And I think that that's a conversation that's why we're here with you tonight, to have that conversation. And
I'd be more open to that kind of rental situation than having, it's a really bad spot to try to have it. Like, I don't envy your position. I'd rather have high-end apartments there than, these dopey 32-foot lots with skinny houses that look like school buses.
Kendra, do you by chance have from the, staff report,
where all these
the
houses are.
streetscape
Another
available
apartment building.
to show?
I
that
don't know.
they're-
Just a
I'm-
moment.
Well, it's in the staff report, yes.
Yeah, just, I gotta.
I don't know.
I don't know if in the staff report there is, I just want to be able to point to it and show you what. I would say the 32-foot wide product, the goal of that product is to meet the mixed residential guiding, and that this is a unique site to this, community. Just for reference, this is an existing 32-foot wide, that is in a for-rent, purpose-built for-rent community. This same builder is building them for sale. I mean, they're in the high 4 to low 5 price range. This is their for sale product, oops, excuse me. Right there. That is the same size lot. And then this is, sorry, I shook that, this is the Edgewater streetscape. If you drove down Walnut Grove today, you would see that's, maybe some of the colors
Beginning
are
to
different,
develop.
but it's beginning
Yeah.
to develop. That is Walnut Grove there.
So those are the 50-foot,
Those are actually, I'm sorry, the Edgewater is 45-foot wide lots, 5 and 5 side setbacks, so,
Throughout the entirety of it.
yes. And that one also was in the shoreland overlay, and we had to deal with, I actually worked, you originally worked on those entitlements, and then we
Re-entitled.
We re-entitled it with the 45,
Build for rent
with the
product.
5 and 5.
It has.
I just wanted to give you
Yeah.
something to look at,
Mhm.
as Kendra mentioned, we were supposed to do a tour yesterday, and Becca.
So those on the top, just so I understand, Steph, those are 40-foot, those are drawn as 45-foot lots or 40?
Correct. They're
45.
45-foot wide lots with a 35-foot building.
Okay.
And then these are a 32-foot lot with a 22-foot building pad, and they're a
Rear
60-foot
load.
deep rear load.
So they front on
I,
the street.
I mean, it's just a product that is coming into this market to meet, not everyone wants the attached product, but
Right.
it is hitting a price point that people want, and it fits, in this neighborhood here, I believe this is the, Canvas at Inver Grove project. And that's a mix of, I believe, 50-foot wide lots and 32-foot wide lots there.
And again, the builder is just a high-quality builder in town, Robert Thomas Homes. And they are also building these in their communities for sale.
I thought you were originally going with the builder that was with Bass Lake Crossings.
No, we never committed to that. We committed to their architectural guidelines and the same thing. And I've had multiple calls and conversations with neighbors, and I've never committed to that. They knew that that was what we were hoping, and we were gonna talk to John about it on the 19 lots. And he was too busy in your new project that MI Homes is doing, and had enough to deal with there. So we have 2 other builders, for sale builders that we're talking to about the 32-foot and the 50-foot that we have. So we do have for sale interested buyers. And for us, as a landowner, that's very important for us to be able to keep that flexibility open in the event that you all say this is not something we want in an amendment. But I think on the multifamily, I think the fact that nothing changes on that, and a traffic study would be done to show you where the traffic would go and how much it would be per unit, 45 additional units, in the same footprint. That would, and if it were a senior product there, that I do know that if it were a 55-plus product, it would be approximately 6 additional cars. So that was trips, excuse me, and that is something that United Properties can speak to, because they did have a project where they pivoted And they went from an Applewood to a 55 plus Amira, because they have an Amira senior apartment building. And they are doing those in several communities. So they can speak to that later this afternoon or this evening about that, and could talk about the traffic study that they did for their last project.
Jeremy, how many points would this get on your scale?
I tried going through that. I tried very hard.
Yeah,
I don't know.
because we've done that in Maple.
It's less than 30 acres, though, so it wouldn't necessarily be subject in the same way, right? This is, how many acres remain now? Is this 25 or 22?
No, it's less.
Last night.
So,
Oh, no, but
I struggled to think of a box it would check on yours.
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think it does. I would agree, I would rather not see this as rental homes, not necessarily for the same reasons as John, but more, I would prefer to see more housing stock available for purchase, just for the sake of trying to keep supply high and price lower and more affordable, and create opportunities for people to find that starter home someplace.
to that point, I would say the 32 foot is something that
It's gonna
creates
get
a
us closer to
new
that.
inventory. I know it maybe it looks different than some of the other single-family housing in the city, but it is
It's in
meeting a
demand.
price point for people that, and it would be similar to the 19 existing single-family lots that are HOA, snow mow, it's that villa type maintenance.
And we are talking to a for sale builder that would be interested in both the 50-foot and the 32-foot, because that's the product they have, yeah. So there are several builders out there that are doing both of these products.
But if you're talking about this being single-family starter homes, right, you envision
More affordable.
more affordable, but family starter homes, where's the parks and amenities around there for kids? to
Right,
go?
there's
That is-
1.82 acres of additional amenity space that will be.
Yeah, well, I mean,
And
you
then we
have,
could
you
do
have
a-
an open space right along Highway 10, County Road 10.
Right.
Well,
I think
Most
our
of which
vision
can't be
that
built
was,
on
if it
anyway.
was the rental, they wanted some sort of dog run or pickleball type courts that we thought we could, based on our concept plan, was about 2 pickleball courts, but you could do a pocket park.
yeah.
You could, I mean,
A
I would,
pocket
if
park
you
would be
did
a
for
good
sale,
thing
you'd
there
do.
next, because the 19 acres, or the 19 lots are likely to be more of an empty nester senior product. That's just the way it's going. That's what everybody's looking at it for, the villas, and that's how it was intended, always something similar to that. And there's not always empty nesters that live in those. I mean, there's single people that live there and really enjoy that type of living. But this product would provide a more opportunities for families. It's a 2-story, which we couldn't do along the Bass Lake crossings. They really wanted us to do ramblers like they had. So we agreed to the first 10 would all be rambler and 1-story. And these would just, it's a different product, but it's in demand and people are buying it.
I just, on that previous image, just something else for the council to think about, because we haven't seen this before, and I just want to make sure everyone was picking up on the alley loaded,
Oh,
meaning
good
the
Yeah.
garages are all on that private drive,
Yeah.
so the front doors face the County Road 10 and face whatever the street is.
No, front doors face,
Well,
well,
yeah.
front doors face the
Most
74th or
on
Brockton.
Brockton.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
And
so
on
And then the other side face.
And on the south,
But-
those 7 face 10, and so
Correct.
it's a little different. So in the sense of minimizing garage face with the narrower lots, just something I want to make sure, because there was a
Yeah.
couple of different images up there,
Yeah, I guess
and
it's-
these would not have garages facing the public street. The
So these
garage would be on the
front
back.
doors.
And where you see the pickleball courts, that could be a nice pocket park too, so, for the families. The Bill for Rent just wanted pickleball, but it's just a place setting right now to just show, and, yeah.
Well, I think if the apartment building was anything other than age restricted, you'd need a bigger park, way bigger park, than a
Yeah.
pocket park.
Mhm.
So, I mean, personally, I wouldn't want to see that building anything other than age restricted if it goes to rental.
Right.
Because that was one of the big selling points
Right.
about the co-op, was there was minimal traffic. People weren't driving to work in the morning and stuff,
Yep.
so.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you said in term, I'm sorry, Jeremy. Oh, go Go ahead.
I guess question for Kendra. If we were willing to modify the intended land use downward, would we need to go to 145 units on the apartment? And keep it at the 100 that we had
If
originally?
you were gonna go down and make that fewer units, that would fit within the next lower land use classification. It might change the building footprint. I don't know what United Properties project is, but no, you could change that and say, for example, we approved 100 units, we don't care, we would allow rental instead of for sale, but it's 100 units. You certainly would have that ability to say that. Now, whether that's still something that UP can make work, I don't know, but, because that would require revisions probably to that building footprint.
Kendra, I think maybe
I agree.
it was this, maybe you misunderstood the question, but maybe this is a question in my mind too on the, are you asking if they don't get ever separated, right? I mean, kind of what we've talked about on the, this is one PUD, you're not gonna take one parcel out and you're re-guiding the whole
Correct.
project. And so it all has to fit in the 8 to 10 units, or does it all get down zoned?
Correct. Yep. I think that,
Is
did I
that-
not answer your question?
So we keep using the word down zone, but we know that's not accurate.
Reclassify.
We reclassify lower, that would apply to the entirety of the
Right,
project.
so it would all have to fit under the 3 to 5.
Well, we have.
There's an intermediate.
We have a medium density that it could go to, which is 5
5 to
to 8.
7.
Or 5.
Yeah, one
Yeah.
of those.
On the one comment on the multifamily site, the 100 units co-op worked as a 100-unit co-op at that size because they're larger footprint for sale product. And I think Alex or Dave from United Properties could speak to that much better than we could, but that the reason for the additional units is because the rental does go down to, I believe, they're in the 900 square foot range.
I think 900
In the house?
to 1,200 or something, just,
Just
it's
the
a senior
size.
product, they're a Mira. And they'll actually be showing that to you when they're here later this evening. So just because it's a part of their Mira
Medium
products inside, it was in that slideshow. But I was wondering if your question was more about, about the density, but maybe I misunderstood it, so.
Well, my other questions then would be, let's say that change were to happen. First of all, I think you mentioned earlier that like the architecture look, all of the exteriors would stay the same from
Of
the
the
co-op to.
multifamily, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
Mhm. Yes.
But
that's
wouldn't parking, I mean, adding 45 units, wouldn't that affect parking calculations? and-
Yes, but they've done that, apparently, they told us they've done that in another community where they took 100 units of Applewood, and they re-approved it as 145 unit, the same building and the same footprint. So, again, that's a great question for them tonight
Yeah.
when they're here.
Okay.
I think
So-
one of the answers to that, maybe the underground parking that was part of that. I think that there was more
Okay.
parking
Yeah.
than
The exterior might not change dramatically, but it's gonna change because window placement's gonna be different. Windows, there'll be more windows because there's more units.
Well, again, that's a great question for them. That is
Yeah,
a
we just
great
need more
question for
information
them.
on that, I
Yeah,
think, to
yeah,
even be able to
yeah.
weigh in on it.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Or anybody? Suppose they made that, where C is, they made 80, and no one's gonna do this, but hypothetically speaking, 80 foot minimum on lot sizes, for example.
Mhm.
And I only use it as an extreme example to point out that no one would probably buy that lot because it's in such a weird spot
Well,
to
it's on the
have.
it's on County Road.
Yeah, you're not gonna want a big yard on County Road 10. So it's almost like,
that is where the real.
That's why we're
gold
asking
is.
you for your thoughts on this, because we are, I mean, this is what we do for a living, but you all live in places and you see things a lot as a council. And I think that we know this is a product in the market that's in demand, and for us, that's important. I mean, it makes no sense for us to design developments that people are not purchasing that product.
If you were to go west, all the M&I homes are what size lots and stuff, Kendra? West of,
They're 50.
Yeah, good question. Natalie.
because
did
those
some
people
research.
butt up against 101, and I don't mind product like that, but this is not my
Bass Lake
wheelhouse.
Crossing on the north side of 10 is 50-foot lots. Bass Lake Crossing south is 40-foot wide lots.
40-foot
On the
south
south.
is behind the rental
That's next to the,
By a line.
And with the mini
storage.
Yeah.
a critical difference is that when we approved that 40, we all knew no one could see it from Bass Lake Road. That was part of the conversation, was like, we didn't want to have 40-foot lots, but the only people that were going to be able to see those 40-foot lots are
People that live
in
there.
the neighborhood.
Down below the hill and stuff.
So this is like what people kind of don't want our town to look like, and it's right on the end.
Okay,
entrance of
so
our town.
you mentioned, because this is mixed residential zoning and district, you mentioned you'd rather see an apartment there. So if we
Wait, I
took-
said that?
No.
You did.
I think he did, but I think you
That's very
misspoke.
high end.
Rather than, it was a rather than, not I would rather, it was rather than something else, not on its own, not a standalone. I'd rather see an apartment there.
So there's still several questions that I think, the rental piece, I feel like there's,
I don't think there's support for the
Maybe-
rental piece.
I don't think there's support for that, so, I think I'm pretty clear there's not for the single family, but I'm not as clear on the, co-op switching to rental.
I would rather see that as a senior condo, maybe not Applewood, than as an apartment. If it needs to be rental, it should be a senior rental, and I wouldn't want to see the unit count go up significantly from what we originally approved. That's where I would
I'd agree with that.
land.
Can I ask the question one more time? What happened to Applewood? They were advertising that coming to Corcoran, there was a sign out front that went away quickly. What happened?
Well, they're here with us tonight at the council
For the
meeting,
other item?
and they will absolutely answer that. I feel like I can answer it and say it was an economic situation, and equity and financing and.
And those are all things we talked about back then, was who's gonna pay for that? They said, don't worry about it, we got people that want it. $425,000 starting up to 600 and some
For
thousand
us,
dollars starting.
this is a heartache for us.
Yeah, I know.
Not to be able to
I know.
have that. So I, again, encourage you to ask them about it, because we're asking the same questions.
I'm asking them out loud, I'm not,
Yeah.
I think y'all figured me out, I don't hold much back, I'm holding a lot back tonight. But we did a PUD related to single-family homes, memory care, a nurse or a daycare, and Applewood. All of that sold me with a lot of buy-in from the neighbors to the west.
Agreed.
All of the conversations, the endless conversations I have on my time, talking with those neighbors and stuff, they were okay with that. They asked, what happens if it would change? I said, anything can change, absolutely. Well, would it come back to the council for review? I said, if it were up to me, I would push it all the way back to the planning commission and start over, but if it's an amendment, that's not starting over, that's just saying, oh, we changed our minds. I'm not a fan of, I'm a fan of change, but not like this. This months to get that neighborhood to buy into this, all of these things, and there's so many things that are changing. It isn't fun sitting up here listening to this stuff, so.
Yeah, yeah. not been fun for us to have people walk on us and product change either. So I totally understand, please understand that that is not in our control, unfortunately.
Well,
You're the
Contracts
messenger.
have been-
And
I think Alan had a comment.
And I'll say something, and don't take this personally, but we see this with every developer that comes in. They want X, and we give them X with something else, and they always come back with something, and they say, market's changed, market's changed. Well, it turns into something that we really didn't want in the first place. And it almost feels like, and this is what I'm saying, don't take this personally, but it almost feels like a bait and switch type thing.
Right.
Yep.
Right? Where
Yep.
we were baited into something, and now we're asking for something that's totally different.
Yep.
And that's why I said, if this would've came in this way before, it probably wouldn't have got passed
So
that night.
your wetland delineation is gonna change an
it's
awful lot
done.
of things
Wetland
too.
delineation is done. We did it all. That site is actually done, but that doesn't, that's here nor there.
Kendra,
We
is that,
felt that people asked for single family, and so
On
when
the
we
big
came
site,
back
not the
with
new
a
site.
single family.
on the little
detached
site, I'm
product,
talking about wetland delineation, the new added portion, there's
It's done.
significant wet.
I did it already, so it's done.
Kendra is saying it's not done
Well,
yet.
she's
I mean,
just.
we
she
have-
just
probably
said
haven't
I didn't
seen
send
it.
To her yet, I'm sorry.
We haven't seen it.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, it's done, we did it with the other
I'll
project.
shut up.
It's,
Sorry.
we were hoping that single family would
Yeah.
be something, because that is what people were upset about the memory care. They were upset about the daycare. They didn't feel they belonged, which I still feel they belong. I still feel they were the best. It was the best design, what we came in with.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were looking forward to the memory care once we finally
You know, me
agreed
too.
to it.
I agree with you, absolutely. I can't do anything about a memory care saying, you know what, construction costs are too high, interest rates are too high, we can't do this anymore at this number. Now, might that change? That could change, but I don't know when. And I reached out to the other memory care immediately, and they had already purchased another by Hy-Vee and spent more money than we had sold our piece for. So we just thought single family, and again, we sat down with council, or with staff, and we were hopeful that single family and bringing the Ebert piece in and getting that unknown taken care of was a good thing. And I apologize if you're offended by this. That was not our intent, and it was not our intent to bait and switch anyone.
No, and I didn't mean that to you. I'm just saying, in
I
general,
understand
every
that.
development that's come through,
Right.
it's kind of seemed that way.
But
you know,
I
it's-
might just want to say, and I'm not saying this really for all developers, but people do, I mean, things change on us. And the entitlements and construction and all of the work takes obviously a long time. And in that timeframe, the economy can change. And we're just trying
Why did
to-
we have to hurry up and give you access and do all of those changes back in September, October, November? We had to
Well,
do stuff before
No,
things
it
were
was Great that
finalized.
you did, and I'm so glad you did, because
Why
we got
did
the
we have
construction
to?
done. We're done. So
You're not done, it's
No,
started.
that's the city's, that's the city. We're done with our
Well-
infrastructure, we got it done. So we're happy about that. We were thrilled that we got done what we said we would get done.
But a lot of it too was said in order for us to meet deadlines and stuff with the current or the current agreements that you had. I mean, that's why I agreed to it
Yeah,
myself, was that this is bought in by the neighborhood, this is bought in by you, this is bought in by everybody that had stakeholders, and now, how many stakeholders we got left? None.
Well-
Or is the same stakeholders, just a whole different market, because the market has changed that fast overnight?
And I think another thing, like, the concept of single-family homes there isn't necessarily the issue. It's that, at least me personally, I've never even considered a 32-foot wide lot with, you know, really down to a 22-foot wide home
yeah.
by the time you include the setbacks. Never considered that as a possibility or something I've seen.
Yeah,
So would you consider 50 foot or 45 foot wide in the same, I don't know that we can do it, but, because we probably wouldn't, I don't know that the Ebert parcel would be a part of it, because now that, I completely thought we didn't have to do a PUD. We just were doing an amendment, because a apparently you, in the past, the city has attached other parcels, like for Lennar or somebody, and that was was considered a PUD amendment. So that's what we were going by.
But you still always had to plat it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm still saying
Yeah.
it's a PUD amendment. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But you still have to go through planning commission, so they will look at the plat and the PUD amendment together, just to be clear.
Okay,
That's the process. It's
Okay.
not different than when Lennar added pieces to Ravinia.
so with your input, since this is a work session, if you were to do single family, 50-foot, 45-foot, whatever it is, that on, not 32-foot, on the memory care and the Ebert piece, how would you do that with a front-loaded product? Would you do a private like this and then back them up to, I mean, how would that work? I mean, I've been really trying to.
Why couldn't they be the same as the houses on MI on the other side of the road?
Because we've been told that the driveways, the staff, tell me if I'm wrong, that you don't want the driveways coming out on Brockton, like MI's. So then we don't have the same situation as MI. If that's the case, then the driveways come off just like MI homes.
Well, why would that be the case?
I think engineering is concerned about the number of driveways coming onto Brockton there with the curves.
Yeah. But
Why-
that would be substantially less driveways if we went to a 50-foot lot.
Right, so it could be a different answer
Yeah.
if it was that.
So
Or you,
aren't there
Maybe
lots of
10.
driveways on that?
It would be 10 on the Ebert piece, because that's how I ghosted it. And then it would probably be 7 on the, or 8 on.
So the road on the west end that goes north-south, we'll call it 35W, and it's got all the neighbors. There are lots of driveways that go out to that street, right?
Correct, that's how,
And-
that's right,
And I don't know how wide are those lots?
50.
So there's a problem running driveways from box C north to the road to be renamed? Is there a problem with that? Or
I
that's what we were
wouldn't
just
think
Right
so.
along here.
But you're saying engineering has some
I
sort of
think if they
problem
were
with that?
50-foot lots, it's a different answer than if they're 32-foot wide lots.
Because if you had a
Wait, is it an
22-foot,
answer that's better, or
I think
that
they
they'd
would
allow it, or they-
probably allow them if they were 50-foot wide lots.
Okay.
think of the snow storage, right? So if you've got a clear, if the driveway is 22 feet like most of them are, you've got a 32-foot wide lot, you've got to have 12 foot.
Well, yeah.
If you get, yeah,
I
but if
just
you got
wanna-
more, you got more driveways, you got more
Sometimes
storage for pushing
Sometimes
snow off the road.
the answers aren't always like, I just wanted to clarify. Nothing wrong with, even if you're 99% sure. There are weird laws out there.
A lot more snow storage if you got driveways.
On a private drive.
Yeah.
So again, I
These are
think,
private drive, this is a private drive
So there's
access.
plenty of snow storage, but because,
Beth, if
Yeah.
you did, if the council, and they're not saying, I haven't heard them say
No,
this, but
I'm
if
just-
they said, we would support the 45-foot lots or the 50-foot lots on this, I think I heard Steph say something different, so I want to ask, would you still lay it out like this with the private drive and the garages in the middle? Or would you just do a single row of single-family butting up against that north street?
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what the depth you have on,
Maybe that's the next step to see.
but I'm just, and we don't need to, I think just so you know, this was ghosted in our PUD application as single-family lots that butted, that driveways
That's what I'm saying,
came
that's the
off.
difference
Yeah.
between 50-foot and
Right.
32.
And the difference of front-loaded versus rear-loaded, right? So, and then, yeah,
one other thing on the 32 footers,
because it may not make sense to add that.
well, on the 32 footers, I think one of the goals was, particularly if it was the rental community, but I think if it's for sale as well as it's important, was giving some room for some amenity space with these. I mean, you go from, you have the trail but I think we were trying to find some additional benefit.
It was
With
a
that,
density issue
and-
too. It's a density issue of then changing the whole density, what it's
Yeah.
guided for and everything.
I think if you go to 50-foot lots, you end up more with people moving into that area that are similar to Bass Lake Crossings North. And amenities will
And if
probably be
that's what
less
you're
needed.
looking for, that's not the mix of residential uses, but it could still be considered mixed residential because you have a daycare and you have multifamily and you have single family, so it's still a mix of product, I would say, as a developer.
Yeah, and in there, my concern is not as much mix of product, it's aesthetics. What that's gonna look like from 10, when people drive down 10.
The 32-foot or the 50?
A 32-footer, you're gonna see 12 garages stacked on top of each other, cause they're all backloading on that one side, and then you're gonna see a few homes that are stacked on top of each other.
Yep.
You know, it's gonna be right in your face.
Yeah, backloading, it depends on your perspective. It's not backloading from Highway 10. So is C 16 acres?
C?
No.
No, it's 1.8, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Three point,
It's 3.
3.1,
C,
isn't
no,
it?
you mean C, the whole C?
No, just that little new,
Yeah,
the Ebert
green?
piece.
Oh,
Yeah.
the whole Ebert piece.
Yeah.
That is 3 point.
Oh, okay. So we don't run into issues if we have 50-foot drive. Like, it actually would be kind of nice to have more space between Bass Lake Road and the back of the houses if they ran 50-foot lots off of.
It'll be a deeper, it would be a deeper,
But I don't know if it'd be deeper plus the
Be
road.
120
Plus
plus
the
that,
road,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, it would be, yeah, I mean, it would be significantly
It'd be more space overall, yeah.
than the M&I homes.
It'd be similar to that, yeah.
Yeah. So they have big
Yes,
stones and berms and stuff, like, it,
We would definitely burn.
yeah, well, I mean, for
Because we
your,
don't want the noise on 10.
for your sake
It's
and
not-
for
not
the-
nice for the houses.
the town's sake too, like, if you drive down Bass Lake Road in Maple Grove, in a lot of places, like you can look and see what people are doing in the morning, cause the houses are like right above the road. If you're looking for something that makes our town slightly different than Maple Grove, if these places had driveways on, Brockton, and a backyard, and then big space for,
It'll probably be storm ponding, to be honest with you.
I know, but that's not
Yeah,
bad.
That's fine,
No,
no, it's
yeah.
not bad. I agree, it's space.
Yeah.
But I think the houses are gonna want some buffer, like a berm. I do, because it's not fun to look
But,
out
yeah.
back here to 10, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so in theory, both parties win.
yeah, hopefully that's the goal.
I suppose you couldn't shift your ponding over to that open space like it was on the other
Well,
side.
I've talked to them about that, but we're working, we don't wanna, again, go too far with this, right?
Yeah.
Until- But, you know, we are ponding, this site, this project took responsibility for all of this ponding for all of this water coming down Brockton. And we paid for it to be stored in a larger pond. So this is already probably included in that. So, but it would need, it would probably be a filtration pond that would go there, so it would filtrate here before it went to the main pond.
Even if you had, like there's a neighborhood off Lawndale that has a big pond with with a couple of fountains, north of, or south of Bass Lake Road. Lawndale and Bass Lake Road has neighborhoods back there, and
At least in neighborhoods
they
and stuff.
they separate from Lawndale with a holding pond
Mhm.
that has a fountain in it, for example. So like,
If it's a holding pond, I think you could possibly, I don't know if they'll let you do fountains, I'm not sure. That's the other issue.
what?
It depends on the type of tree.
That's the thing.
How terrible to have fountains.
But this is our big pond here, but there's
Whatever.
another pond that we're dumping into over here in Maple Grove.
I don't know. I'm not a fan of anything. I'm just trying to, like, you at least come in to say, like, this, at least you came in. I'll give you that. Thank you for coming in and having a conversation.
Well, thank you for being here. We really do appreciate it. As difficult as these discussions can be, they're really valuable. They're very valuable, and you may not feel that, but I will be going to the neighbors, no matter what we do here. I have connections there, I've already called them, and I said, I want to talk to you about updates and any changes that we're thinking about, but I really felt that coming here first, and I think staff felt it was critical to have your input first before we even, right, because
Yeah,
it's,
no, I
it's
think that makes sense.
critical. Yeah, it's important, and we really appreciate it. They're not easy conversations, but they're really valuable, and thank you for being available to do it. So, yeah, I don't know if I can regroup or recap what we've talked about, but I would like to consider, the senior apartment option as we come back, because I do believe the traffic is so minimal, and they'll be able to show you that. And then I think we'll just have to rethink if this is something we want to add. Maybe that's not work, maybe it's not smart, and then what we do with this site. So,
Can you try to recap what we said, so we at least know if you heard us? Right?
you don't like this product, the 32-foot. You don't want that. You don't want rental in here or in your community. And you would consider 55 a senior apartment.
I think that's pretty close, yeah.
How does the rest of the council feel about additional units in that apartment versus the original approval? Because that's a big question.
I'm mostly
Built
curious to
and-
see how that plays out with the parking adjustments, with our parking requirements, and then, does that change the spacing of the lot and just the trickle-down effect from that? And then also the density. We're worried about getting to the density, potentially with these homes being, if they were bigger lots. We're adding 45 units there, doesn't that help?
Not
It is
enough. So
not enough.
this plan, as I calculated, as shown, with 145 units in the apartment, and then these 32-foot wide lots is like right at 8 units an acre. I don't have the civil engineer's drawings, but it's right at 8 units. But if the council would support a reclassification from mixed residential to medium density, that requires 5 to 8.
Okay.
It probably, well, I would have to do the math. I don't know what those numbers would be if you had a smaller apartment building and then lost some of those.
Kendra, on the approved plan, what is the density on that?
That was right at 9-ish.
Because it was
assisted-
short the 3 acres of Ebert.
It was short the 3 acres, and the assisted living counted as units.
30 or 27. Sorry.
Yeah.
27 units.
To your point, Jeremy, I don't know that I'd have that big a issue with it, because originally, when it was a co-op concept, it had a bunch of amenities in it. They even talked about like a wood shop and things like that, and those spaces are probably out the window. So they're probably putting units in where those things
I would
are.
ask that. That's a great question. I don't think they're out the window.
You think they're still gonna have?
Their rents on these 55 plus are pretty significant.
So there would still be some type of amenities
I
inside?
believe, and I think their pickleball court would stay here. I think all of that would stay. I
Okay.
really do, but that's a great question for them tonight.
Yeah, but I'd imagine you're talking maybe 60 more people. You're probably not gonna generate that much traffic when you've got 60 people that
If
are
it's
age
55 and
restricted.
older,
55 and older, they're probably even,
you,
they're more like 65, 70.
in your request, you say market rate apartments. We have another thing, another concept that was coming to us that was market rate apartments. And did you guys say one of these could be, no, one of the homes could be $4,000 rent, not apartment?
Rent the homes.
So what is market rate apartment
Yeah,
numbers to you?
yeah, well, it's not to us because we're not the.
I understand, but
we've
what
talked
is-
to them about that.
What is market rate? How much? I won't hold you to anything.
He said on the senior, and I'm just gonna say on the senior 55 plus, he was 260 plus a foot.
So at 900, around 950 square feet, that's,
$2,100. You're the numbers guy.
You got it, good.
Did I do it off my head?
Good job.
Did I nail that?
Want me to check
Every
it?
once in a while, a blind
check it.
squirrel finds a nut.
You said 260?
I wish I could answer it off the top of my head.
263 or something, 'cause it-
2,300.
Wasn't even close, 2340.
It's pretty close.
I
You
was
really
gonna
had to
say
use your
2,600
Yeah.
a unit.
I like to be accurate.
And that's
I
the
don't want to fall
smaller
into the
unit,
trap.
so, yeah.
You did what?
I don't want to fall into the trap.
Cheaters bus stop.
Yeah.
And again, those are good questions for United Properties,
Yeah.
because that's what they do.
Or an apartment.
Or an apartment.
And another question to ask is what happened to the Applewood?
Yes, absolutely.
They'll be here for a
And
different item, but-
windows and all of that.
I think a silo could fit in.
Oh, we've talked about that.
We did talk, I talk about it with everybody.
Okay, well, I think it's at least a kind of direction.
Yeah, thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
No
You're
problem. Thank you. Okay, anything else before we have about a 13-minute break till the council meeting?
Motion to close.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
All right.
Aye.